Hello and welcome. I'm Cindy Johnson-Suplick, and this is my take on aging with purpose. What is the very best vision that you have for your senior years? And what tools can you use to attain that? I'll be giving you a variety of concepts, tenets, and techniques tonight, but I want you to come away with 3 key learnings. How to reframe your legacy, in other words, acting into your future self. Your legacy doesn't start when you die. You have been building it over time, but you can still work to change perceptions of yourself. So I want you to think about what additional values you'd like to be remembered for and reframe that and act into yourself moving forward. Secondly, how to give back and get more in small as well as large ways, and how to practice self-care. Self-care is defined as weighing your options every day. Should I do this or that for myself? What is most loving for myself? What fits now? So we've talked about reframing your legacy, how to give back and get more, and your third key learning is how to practice self-care. It's weighing your options every day. Should I do this or that for myself? What is most loving for myself and what fits now? Now, aging has changed over the past few decades. In fact, we've added 30 years to human life expectancy in the past century. And in 1900, we lived till the mid-40s, but in 2014, men lived to 76 and women lived to age 81. However, half of all adults at this point in time have chronic health conditions, one or more, such as heart disease, cancer, diabetes, obesity, arthritis. Now, I personally have 4, but I dropped down to 3, but then a couple weeks ago I picked up a 4th one again. But the least serious but most annoying are these hand tremors. And please excuse me, but I cannot help them. It is not Parkinson's, it's hand tremors. And I'm just lucky that I don't have the waggly head like the rest of my family has. So anyhow, enough of that. New medications and lifestyle changes often mitigate these chronic health conditions. They can't be cured, but they can be managed, and so life goes on. We choose how to live it. Now, self-perceptions and attitudes really matter. They have a greater impact on survival than gender, socioeconomic status, loneliness, and functional health. In fact, people with positive attitudes live 7 years longer, and they are happier too. Most importantly, optimism can be learned. Think about the ways that you can improve optimism. For example, you can try on a positive lens. You can keep company with optimistic people. Optimism is just as contagious as pessimism is. You can turn off the news. It's so discouraging these days. Keep a gratitude journal and accept what you can and cannot control. But finally, temper your optimism with realism. Now we're going to listen to Dr. Martin Seligman, who is the father of positive psychology. 20 years ago, he was looking for an antidote for depression other than heavy-duty medication. And he did a lot of research on happiness, optimism, resilience, etc. So we're going to listen to him talk a little bit about what that means to him.
Optimism, for me, is not the simple glasses half full versus glasses half empty. Rather, it consists of the way that you think about setbacks and the way you think about victories. The optimistic person, when they have a setback, believes that it's temporary, I can change it, and it's just this one situation. The pessimistic person, when they have a setback, believes it's going to last forever, it's going to undermine everything I do. Conversely, when a victory occurs, when you win, when a good thing occurs, the optimistic person believes it's going to last forever, I did it, and it's going to help me in every circumstance. The pessimistic person shucks victory off and says, I didn't do it, it's just this one situation, and it's just going to help me in this one domain that I'm in. Who bounces back from a setback? The answer seems to be that the resilient person thinks about the setback differently from the non-resilient person. The resilient person says, I can change it, it's just this one situation, it's going away quickly. The non-resilient person, the person who doesn't bounce back, says, it's going to last forever, it's going to undermine everything I do.
Okay, let's move on to the U-curve of happiness. In general, surveys in nearly 150 countries show that older people are happier people. You can see in their 20s, the rated life satisfaction is incredibly high. But in the midlife, adults are least happy. And finally, happiness ratings rise gradually from age 50 into the 90s. Well, why is this? Why does it change like that? Well, in the 20s, life is exciting, it's adventurous, perhaps we're working the dream job. I know I was at the time. In our 30s, it's a time of hard work and steady rewards. I felt on track. I had white picket fences and we were living the American dream. But in the 40s, people tend to obsessively compare life with other people's, scoring and judging oneself and counting up the ways in which one has fallen behind in the race. Many people feel, is this all? Gosh. But in the 50s and beyond, midlife is for many people a time of recalibration, evaluating their lives less in terms of social competitiveness and more in terms of social connectedness. Plus, people are frankly more accepting of their limitations. In the elder years, the goals are more about meaning and savoring and living for the moment. The feeling is often, actually, life is pretty good. That's why we saw the U-curve in the happiness. So there's another bonus in aging. Wisdom prevails. What are the traits of the wise? Well, compassion is one. And compassion is more than empathy. It compels us to help others to relieve suffering. Good social reasoning. We've picked up interpersonal cues as a means of learning acceptable behavior. In other words, we finally have learned how to act. Tolerance. Comfort with uncertainty and ambiguity. Things were so black and white when we were younger, but that gray area has really expanded and we've learned to accept that. And finally, emotional intelligence. Seniors are frankly better at seeing the positive side of a stressful situation and empathizing with the less fortunate. So a pretty good list. So as seniors, we have age, happiness, and wisdom, which can enhance our lives. So what we need then is purposeful action. Now there are a couple of underlying premises as I put together this report. One is we don't have control over life's events. We just don't. But what matters is how we think about things, how we talk to ourselves, and how we respond to situations. It is these beliefs, self-conversations, and attitudes that shape our actions. Now, furthermore, the importance of self-love and self-care we can't forget. Self-love is a state of appreciation for oneself that grows from actions that support our physical, psychological, and spiritual growth. Oftentimes we're taught to love others. That's what we're taught. But if you don't love yourself, you don't have the capacity to love others. You can't nurture unless you have been nurtured yourself. The same is true of self-care. There's a reason that flight attendant tells you to put on the mask on yourself first, before you put it on the child. Okay, self-care, as I said, is one aspect of realizing self-love. It's weighing your options every day. Should I do this or that for myself? What is most loving for myself? What fits now? Let me give you some examples. This morning you may say, gosh, I'm going to make a salad for that dinner tonight. My favorite salad. Everybody loves that recipe. But by midday, you're exhausted, you've gone to the Y, you've walked the dog, you want a nap, and you say, you know, I think I'll just go over to Byerly's and buy a salad. So you do that, and you come back, and you pick out a pretty bowl, and you put the salad in a bowl and take it off to the party, and nobody ever knows that you didn't make it from scratch, right? I'm guilty of doing that. So just a simple example of self-care. Now, if you're an introvert, as 30% of the people in the world are, you don't like big crowds. And you might decide that what's best for you in terms of self-care is I'm going to go bike by myself at Carver Park today. But on another day, you might reverse that and say, you know what? I'm kind of lonely here. I think I'll go out, call my buddy, and have a cup of coffee with them. And finally, one from my own experience. I was the primary caregiver for my mother for 40 years. And I found at the end of her life that my siblings were micromanaging the hospice care from a distance. It was driving me nuts. And I finally wrote him an email and I said, you have got to step up. And I mean step up and help in her care. So I changed the number 1 and 2 contacts at the hospice and with the nursing home to my sister, who was newly retired and could pitch in, and my brother, who was semi-retired up in Bayfield. And guess what? I didn't get those phone calls in the middle of the night anymore saying, she's about to pass, get down here. So, felt much better after that. So here's the guidelines to aging with purpose. Rekindling your passion, restoring your spirituality, building your legacy, and in terms of social life, reaching out for support, cultivating multiple social networks, giving back and getting more. And in terms of physical life, exercising regularly and practicing self-care. So let's talk for a minute about rekindling your passion. You can pursue something that you did before and you want to go back to it, or you can pick up something new. It doesn't really matter. There are a wide variety of things that you could be doing. How many of you have dived into genealogy? Who's working on their family tree, genealogy? Jenny, what's the most unexpected thing that you found out? There we go. How about you, Ellie?
I got dragged into it. my relatives have been involved.
They've been into it. Did you find out anything that you felt was worthwhile?
Well, it's all interesting.
Yeah, it's all interesting. Well, anyhow, that's one avenue to pursue. In terms of social life, you can do a number of variety of different things. Some of you here in this room today belong to a community choir or the St. Luke Church Choir. My husband goes over to Big Willow Park and walks the dog every Wednesday. And there's an old-timer softball league over there. And the guys play a few games, and then they bring out their grills and their brats and their beers and have a great time. And when my husband walks by, they say, oh, come on over. We've got a glove for you and your dog. So anyway, he gets a real kick out of that. And in terms of physical life, I belong to the YMCA. It's a physical life passion, but it's also one of the largest social clubs in town. Now, another note, my stepmother, I talked to her this weekend, and she's been widowed for a few years. And you know, her friends used to be my father's friends. And they kind of drop off after a while as you're widowed. But she started playing golf at one club, plus pickleball, and now her dance card is full of invitations. So that's the way that these social things can work. Okay, right-size your bucket list. It doesn't need to be extravagant, only something that you've yearned for and gives you a sense of fulfillment. You can hike all the trails of a state park. You can attend a Native American powwow. Make a list of all the things you loved doing as a kid and recreate them. You can climb a tree, wave down an ice cream truck, or build a snowman. It's a great thing to do with your grandchildren. My husband is teaching our 3-year-old grandson how to catch, pass, and shoot hoops. And I think he's having more fun than the grandson is, frankly. Forgive someone who hurt you. This is a big one, but we should do more of this. It's going to make you feel as relieved as the person who hurt you. And how to get to gratitude. There's a number of ways that you can do it. You can catch yourself in a negative thought and redirect. Practice going around the table at home or in your coffee club or whatever it happens, your book club, whatever it happens to be. You can run errands with gratitude. You could thank the person who is bagging your groceries. I went the other day to say hi to Cliff at the Y. He runs the service desk. And I said, "How are you doing today, Cliff?" And he says, "Wow, those are great nails." And I thought, a man remarking about my nails? And he said, "Well, you know, I see a lot of hands in here and they're not very good, so your nails really stand out." So he made me really feel special that day. Give your pet a long belly rub. And make a mental or written list at the end of the day. As Oprah says, no gesture is too small if done with gratitude. So I'd like you to turn to your neighbor now and chat for just a couple of minutes and come up with one thing that you're grateful for today. Just talk to your neighbor. Share a little bit. It could be many things, but one thing that you're grateful for today. There we go. Yes, Jonathan.
I'll make a contribution. Yeah, this happened on Saturday or whatever, but I have a friend, good friend, grew up with him or whatever. We worked together for many years.
How nice.
Do anything.
What a great guy.
So I'm real grateful that there's nobody in the world that I respect more than Jimmy, and I was grateful too that he gave my son such a good antidote to cynicism that'll last the rest of his life.
Right.
You know?
There you go.
And he
Yeah.
wasn't a relative or anything. Just
There we go.
A very good friend. So
Yeah. Well, thank you,
I'm
Jonathan.
immensely grateful for that.
Okay. Restoring your spirituality. Spirituality gives your life context. For some, spirituality is religion or meditation. For others, it's found in nature, art, or music. But cultivating spirituality provides 3 key benefits. You feel a sense of purpose. You focus less on unimportant things. You connect to the world, so you feel less solitary. And you release control. You realize that you are a part of a greater whole, that you aren't responsible for everything that happens in life. And according to the Mayo Clinic, religious and spiritual people live longer because they have less cardiovascular disease, hypertension, lower blood pressure. They also have better behaviors. They exercise more, they eat better, and they smoke less. Now, I want to show you my spiritual journey. We all have one. Took me a while to write it up, but here it is. Up until the age of 18, it was all about the family love of sacred music. I sang all the parts in the choir, particularly the bass and the baritone, because I thought those were the most interesting and I could bellow them out. But I did not sing soprano, Ginny, because I thought the melody was so boring.
Well, you don't even need to read notes to sing soprano.
I think that's right. I don't think you do. So, but in my 20s, my focus was on nature. There I found solace, serenity, and spirituality. I was also very enamored of the transcendentalists. Henry David Thoreau on Walden Pond. Oh my gosh, the interconnectedness of the animate and the inanimate world. It was just fabulous. I thought the Oversoul was everything. So in my 30s, frankly, I was too busy to think much about religion. I was building family and career. That's what my focus was. But in my 40s, I returned to church so that my children could experience faith formation. And I ended up staying here at this church, primarily because of the focus on social justice. So that's why I stayed. But it wasn't until my mid-60s that I found the divine within me. 6 years ago, I nearly died of drug toxicity due to a negligent doctor. I lost my cognitive function, I lost my driver's license, I lost my self-esteem. Life was so grim that there was serious talk of putting me in an assisted living facility for the rest of my life. Little by little, I came back to life by working brain training techniques, with a rigorous physical fitness program at the YMCA, reaching out to my faith community and friends for support, and joining a support group, which many of them are here tonight. But I know that I didn't do it alone. God was a strong presence in my life, and as a result, I fully recovered. Now, because of my faith reaffirmation, when I was diagnosed with breast cancer 3 years ago, I was able to face it with grace and courage. So, at this point, I'm back in the church, and I've returned to sacred music, and I'm singing soprano in the choir.
Way to go.
So, enough of that faith journey. Let's see. Building your legacy. As I mentioned earlier, it does not start with your death, and we're not dead yet. Our legacy builds over time, but you need to be shaping, be intentional about shaping what you want to pass on to others. There's a little outfit out of St. Paul called Celebrations of Life. They come out of the hospice community, they look at the past, present, and future, and they train you how to write ethical wills or legacy letters. And frankly, it's more about bequeathing your values as opposed to your valuables to your family and the community. Your faith, your beliefs, your hopes for the future, life lessons, love, gratitude, and forgiveness. But I don't want to stop there, because a very wise person told me, you know, what if you could reframe your legacy? And, you know, take a look at the actions, beliefs, and values that you may want to carry forward, that you haven't emphasized enough, or new ones that you want to slot in. You may have years yet to enrich this. For myself, I would like to be known for compassion. I would like to be known for advocacy. I do a lot of writing and presenting for people with chronic illness, such as myself, and my writing. For my friend Jean, who's 94, she wrote her first parenting advice book at age 50. And she's written maybe a dozen more. She doesn't know how many books she sold, and she doesn't care. What matters to her is the tributes that she gets from her readers around the world, and the 3 honorary doctorates that she's gotten for her life's work. And finally, in terms of reframing, my father Warren. He was a brilliant lawyer, but he could also be a very mean drunk. When he got sober at the age of 60, he became a very nurturing grandfather. And that's the way my children remember him. They never knew the dark side, thank goodness. He also became a philanthropist for the University of Nebraska. He was on the Board of Regents, he was on the UNL Foundation, and because he was a bond attorney, he did all the stadium funding for the Go Big Red Stadium. So, I'd like you to think for a moment and talk to each other and think about what one way would you like to reframe your legacy moving forward. Now, this is a tough one, but you're all very bright. So think about it, talk to your neighbor. What one way would you like to reframe your legacy moving forward? Okay, anybody got anything they want to share in terms of reframing your legacy? You get to change what you offer to the world. What would you do? Anybody want to talk about how they would like to reframe their legacy? I had one woman in a presentation a few weeks back who said she'd like to be known for kindness. I said, you're already kind. I know you. You're kind, but I'm glad you're focusing on that. Anybody else? So is this too tough of a question?
If you don't articulate it and get it down, who knows what your legacy is? People can guess.
Good point.
People
Good
can
point.
guess, you
I
know.
guess that's why we have a flurry of memoirs going around these days. But that's good. I'll have to read your book.
And my
So I know
kids-
more
my
about
kids
you.
loved my write-up on my background. They didn't know.
Yeah.
From my time
Yeah,
as a kid.
that's kind of what they do with the legacy letters and ethical wills is giving your children that kind of background.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay. Let's listen to what Oprah has to say about legacy and how Maya Angelou advises her.
You're nothing if you're not the truth. The biggest reward is not financial benefits, though it's really good. You can get a lot of great shoes. Nothing wrong with great shoes. But those of you who have a lot of shoes know that having great shoes and a closet full of shoes, or cars, or houses, or square footage, doesn't fill up your life. It doesn't. But living a life of substance can. Substance through your service, your offering of your whole self. And the baseline for how do you live a life of substance is whatever is the truth for you. What do you stand for? When I had finished my school, and I was so proud of myself for building this school in South Africa, and I went to Maya and I said, Maya, that's going to be my greatest legacy in the school. And Maya said, you have no idea what your legacy will be. I go, I know that, but I really think that the school's gonna, be my greatest legacy. You have no idea. So I go, yes, ma'am. She said this, and I leave this with everybody in the room, graduates, friends of graduates, family. She said, your legacy is every life you touched. Your legacy is every life you touched. Feel everything with love, because every moment you are building your legacy.
Thank you, Oprah. In terms of social life, reaching out for support, you need to cast a wide net. Look to different relationships for different kinds of support. Be proactive. You have to give in order to receive, and if you're there for others, they're much more likely to be there for you. Leverage technology. In these days, we can do a lot. We can FaceTime, we can Skype, we can text, we can email, etc. But I would say this, if it is an emotional topic, you might think about crafting a very difficult, craft an email so that you can calibrate the conversation. When I had breast cancer, I didn't call up my daughters right away because I knew they would just freak out. So I sat down and I looked at all the notes that the doctors had given me, and I said, it's caught early, it's minute, it's only a lumpectomy, there's only going to be 5 weeks of radiation, prognosis is really good. So I just wrote it with a calm tone, which was important. I wanted them to put my cancer in perspective and let them know that their mother was not freaking out, and so neither should they. And it actually worked pretty well. I mean, they still called me and everything, but anyway. Follow your interests. Join a club. Sign up for a class or take on a volunteer position that reflects your interests. You're going to find people who like the same things that you do. Seek out peer support. If you have a specific stressful situation, such as a divorce, death of a spouse, death of a child, or chronic illness, look for a support group. Improve your social skills. If you're shy, try shared activities as opposed to just hanging out. And finally, don't be shy about asking for help. You can check out places of worship, seniors in community centers, local libraries, national organizations such as the YMCA and the YWCA. Now here we're going to look at a video that was created by Bob Shoemaker, a prisoner of war. He created a kind of a Morse code. He calls it a tap code. He was in solitary confinement for 3 years. It was a way that he could communicate with his fellow prisoners. And frankly, it saved their sanity.
Fighter pilots think they're invincible, you know, they're never going to get hit. And sure enough, there's a golden BB that's waiting for you there. The mission I was on, I was hit just north of the demilitarized zone that separated North Vietnam from South Vietnam. That was it. They got me, they bound me, and marched me off. The Vietnamese philosophy was to separate the prisoners and keep them from communicating among each other. They could manipulate our minds better if we were held in real isolation. We were put in solitary confinement, and it eventually lasted about almost 3 years. We developed a tap code in which the alphabet was arranged in a square that had 5 rows and 5 columns. You'd say, that's the second row, second column, this is G. It's first row, second column B, and U is fourth row, fifth column is a U, so GDU is God bless. Well, you can imagine being in a cell for 3 years. If you weren't able to communicate, things would be pretty tough, and you could get depressed very easily. So the tap code really kept our spirits alive, our hopes alive, our dreams. So we transmitted things like French lessons through the wall and music lessons. We spent a lot of time on the wall.
Social support is a key factor in becoming a resilient individual. You can't do it alone. You need other people. We've come up with the concept, talking to people like Bob Shoemaker, that everybody needs a tap. Everybody needs a way to communicate with other people to get through tough times. Bob Shoemaker was an example.
Cultivating multiple social networks. If you have several networks, it boosts your self-esteem. My social groups are my faith community here in this church, which nurtures my soul and my spirit. I've been here for 26 years. The Ridgedale Library Book Club. My friend Allie is back there. A bunch of literary ladies that feed my intellect. I've belonged there for 25 years. The YMCA, where I enjoy fitness, friends, and fun. And I belong to a depression, anxiety, and grief support group. Some of the members are here tonight. At various times, I have fit into every one of these categories. And it's been so helpful, I can't tell you. The nice thing about a group is it takes you out of the quagmire of your own issues, and you learn to focus on and help others. So people with high levels of social support, you'll be astounded at this, have 43% less disability and half the rate of cognitive decline, half the rate of losing your brain. So giving back and getting more, helping others makes you feel great. It gives you kind of a helper's high, much like when you do physical exercise with the endorphins. It makes you want to perform more kind acts. Giving gives you a self-esteem boost. As social connectedness increases, so does your self-esteem, especially with more consistent volunteering. You'll have stronger friendships. The National Institute of Health says that if you give off positive vibes, then you're more likely to have your friendships enriched. And you will feel a sense of belonging, a feeling of community, which will reduce isolation and loneliness. Finally, you're going to feel thankful, of course. It gives perspective on life, and you appreciate what you have. So let's turn to an assisted living center who's preparing a meal for the homeless shelter.
There's a lot of people here working to make food.
We've been cutting and they've been buttering bread and someone's been making cookies to serve to the people at the shelter tonight, the homeless shelter. And it's so exciting and an honor to be able to do that because I was never been homeless, but there were times I went without food. I have multiple sclerosis. The fact that I could do something to help somebody else makes you feel so good about yourself. I have arthritis. One lady can't use one hand. We're all working together. It's the first time in a very long time I've tried to make it. Here I am, I'm 54, and I'm feeling for the first time in a long time that I'm worthy, that I'm capable. Makes me feel productive up here to be able to do what we used to do in our kitchen, and it's going to somebody. That's exciting. It gives me something to think about that's so important. It gives us, we feel like humans, that we're still productive.
Was really eye-opening for everyone. I don't think they were really expecting the emotional part of it. When they clapped for the residents for cooking, it was really nice.
I'm looking forward to next month.
Yes, she is looking forward to next month. Okay, finally, our last category, physical life. Exercise, we all know, helps the body. It's the single most important thing that you can do for yourself in terms of quality of life. It makes you feel great, it boosts your strength, it increases longevity, and lowers other health risks such as heart disease, blood pressure, colon cancer, diabetes, depression, arthritis, and falls due to better strength and balance. And we women know that this one is particularly essential. So in addition to that, you have to use it or lose it. You can't only get in shape, you've got to stay in shape. So it's got to be a regular part of your daily routine. But take heart, your moderate exercise is almost as good as those really, really high levels. And the critical factors are the intensity, duration, and frequency of your training. It's never too late. Even couch potatoes in their 90s can become better fit and function better. Now, what's less well known is how exercise helps the brain. It sends chemicals to the brain that affects the health of brain cells. It grows new blood vessels, and it even creates new brain cells. Exercise improves mood and sleep. Many of us know that, but it also reduces stress and anxiety, problems that frequently cause cognitive impairment. And finally, exercise, of course, helps build self-esteem and self-confidence. Finally, practicing self-care. An estimated 75 to 80% of all doctor visits are stress-related. It's a shocking figure. The UN calls stress the 21st century health epidemic. Now, how can we cope? My contention is self-care. Weighing your options every day. Should I do this or that for myself? What is most loving for myself? What fits now? So take just a minute. This is our last exercise, our last slide here. Talk to your friends and neighbors. What one thing can you do in the next 24 hours in terms of self-care? Or sit and think about it if you need to. Okay, what self-care things are you guys going to do?
Go for it.
Go for a long walk, says Sue. Around the lake, okay? Jenny.
Instead of watching the news,
Yes. Yes, because you're watching the Golden Girls. Good for you.
it's when I start sounding like Rose.
Yeah. That you worry a little bit.
boy.
Mary Lou says, yeah. Okay, other self-care things that you want to share. Dick, did you have something?
To work out.
Continue to work out. Okay.
Negative thing.
It's an attitude shift. It's an attitude shift. And it makes all the difference, doesn't it? Okay, good work. Good participatory group. So, rekindling your passion, restoring your spirituality, building or reshaping your legacy, reaching out for support, getting lots of social networks, giving back so you can get more. In terms of physical life, exercising regularly for body, mind, and spirit, and practicing self-care. So, in short, live life with passion, spirit, optimism, energy, love, and giving. And one final note, this is the Madison YMCA swim class that enjoys fitness, fun, and friendship. Woohoo! All right, thank you for your patience and thank you for your participation.
Thank you.
Really, you're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you.